Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Talk to Walk podcast. If you would like to view the video version of this episode, you can click the link in our description, as well as visit us on our website at secondstudentsclinton.com for more info. Well, hey everybody, welcome into this week's episode of the Talk to Walk podcast. My name is Tyler Baker. I'm your host, and with me today we have one of my very, very, very awesome friends, Miss Arbor Diggs.
Hello.
From FCA. Arbor, how are you, girl?
I'm good. I just got the best coffee, apparently, in this town. So
the Get and Go.
The Get and Go.
Oh, the Get and Go.
It is fantastic. So
Man.
I'm awake.
Some of the best food, literally, I've ever had in my life from a gas
Packed.
station.
It's
yeah.
packed.
Heck yeah, those chicken biscuits, that tenderloin.
I'll have to go and get some. So
Yeah.
super good now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Arbor, thank you so much for being here. Kind of what we do on this podcast, what we live by is we believe the conversations at this table are geared to help other people as we talk about things to walk better in their life. And
Love
so
it.
today we're talking about influence and really what it is and how to use it in your life. And so I think really to get started, to help our listeners get to know you a little bit, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you're from, what do you do, who you're married to, if you got a dog or a cat, maybe a goldfish, I don't know, you know.
I wish. Little goldfish. So my name is Arbor Diggs. Definitely a different name. I can't take credit for it. My mama gave it to me. Everyone's like, that's such a cool name. I'm like, thank you. I didn't name it myself, but love my name. Definitely different, but I think that describes me. Different, weird, super, I don't know, out there.
Does it mean anything?
It does. So it means tree in Latin. So
Tree.
arboris means tree. So there's Arbor Day. That was last Friday.
Oh, that's right.
So
Yeah.
I have my own holiday.
Yeah.
I thought it was, you know,
Did you like-
I growing up, I was like, it's my day.
Do you get a gift?
No, I planted a tree and then hugged it. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. Like classic tree hugger. No, but married to Adam Diggs, my best friend ever. Love him. We don't have any pets. We are never home. We also just wouldn't take care of. That sounds terrible. We love other people's animals and we house sit for other people. But right now we don't have our own. We don't have any kids yet until he finishes school. So as of right now, it's just us, but it's great. Less
Nice.
of a bill, which is nice. We're
Absolutely.
saving money.
Absolutely.
I work for FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, full time. I will be starting my 4th year in August, which is crazy to think about. And you're also on staff.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
work with amazing people like you and all my friends. So born and raised close by here. It's called Blount County, Maryville, Tennessee, Greenback, kind of all of those 3 in 1, which is random. Just
Right.
all 3 of them. Went to Maryville College, so I haven't really left this place in my whole 25 years of living.
So you're a local.
I'm a local. Not
that's
to
awesome.
Knoxville, but 30 minutes out.
Well, but still,
Still local.
even in its sense, like we're in Clinton right now,
Yeah.
and we still consider Knoxville.
Yeah.
Everybody's from Knoxville. When you talk about this area, it's how it is.
Because no one knows Maryville or Clinton. It's like, yeah, we're from Knoxville.
I didn't know Clinton existed.
I didn't either.
Until they called me to interview me for this job, and I'm like, oh, that's a
Do I have to
place.
move?
Yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, it's 20 minutes down the road, and I didn't know it existed. It's crazy.
No, real talk though.
Yeah. Well, Arbor, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for telling us about yourself. So really kind of what I'm wanting to capture today, and really a question we get from our students a lot, and it's becoming more of an issue, I believe, is how do I help influence people's lives? And a lot of our students, you know, we communicate this truth here in our student ministry that everybody has influence.
Yeah.
And you're called to influence the circle that you're in.
Yeah.
That God has entrusted you with the people around you to influence them in hopes for them to see Jesus through you and encounter him in and through your life. And so I think with what you do and how you do ministry and the things that you do, which we'll get to in a little bit, you know, I think that your life resembles that you have a lot of influence. I mean, you have a blog on Instagram that is blown up over the last year, which is wild. and even seeing in social media world, you know, the whole influencer role and all this, people are influenced by the littlest things. And so today I want to capture really just a couple thoughts from you starting here.
Yeah.
How in your life have you been influenced, both good and bad? Let's go there.
Good question. I think that's like such an easy one that people should instantly know an answer. But the good part is why I'm in FCA. So looking back, thinking like, okay, who influenced me good? The list is very short, like extremely short. Like my mom and my dad, and then my sister, because thankfully the Lord placed me in such a beautiful family-oriented, like Christian-loving home. And so, I mean, you're around them as a kid until you're a teenager, and even in college, I mean, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, besides school. And so super big influences, but then the list kind of stops. when it comes to good. Like there were people with good morals, right? Like be kind, like don't cheat on tests. But then it kind of stopped there. Like I can think of a few friends from high school who were like nice people, and that was kind of where it stopped. Like there wasn't anyone that was really living fully for Christ in my school, and maybe I just didn't see them and like wasn't looking, or maybe it's because whenever I was dancing, like I didn't go to FCA, I didn't go to church, I didn't go to Young Life, just because FCA or dance consumed my entire life.
Right.
So I don't know if it was just how the Lord led my life a different track, but looking back, there was really not a ton of people influencing me in a good way besides good morals and be kind and love people, the typical like Christian thing to do in the Bible Belt. And so that, we'll get into it later, like you said, but that's the fuel of like why I do what I do, is like I didn't have one, so I want to be one. Yep. So looking back, I mean, it was really like who was kind. I was like, oh, that's sweet. Like I want to be kind like them. But it kind of stopped there. It was very surface level and never went deeper and like, wow, they really live out their faith. Like there were a few people, like my youth pastors, or my old youth pastor's daughter. Like she was one of them. Like her name's Taylor. But like it was just me not really noticing and not really looking for influence. It was kind of just your everyday, walk through the schools and see who's kind. And I think that's why who influenced me badly is the bigger list, or more bad. I'm terrible at grammar. Oh my gosh. I think it's badly. I went to a really great college. I should know that.
Hey, there's no grades here.
Good. I'd make it an F. But who influenced me poorly, that list was way longer. But I say that not to be mean to that list. It was absolutely just the time and place that I was at in my life. It definitely turned cold with my faith. Definitely slipped into like culture Christianity and looked around of like who can I get to like me, who can I get to be friends with me, like how can I get popular. And of course that list is more so on the bad influence. It was like do this, say this, be mean, be gossipy, like do this, wear this, go to these places. And so that list was way longer, but I mean it worked. And really big air quotes, because I mean like it worked to get me popular and to get me cool, but it led me to be a terrible person and do terrible things. And so in the world's eyes, like yes, that influence worked because that got me on an A-list of parties and etc. of that world. But really it was just turned me into such a bad person, into just this cold, sad, alone person. So the good list was super short, but it was amazing people like my family and my sister and a few good morally correct friends. But the bad list was way longer, of just people diving deep into the world. And I sadly turned to that influence way more in college.
Yeah, I think too, with being involved with this generation, because working with FCA, obviously we're in middle schools, high schools. I'm a student pastor. We're around them all the time, and even colleges. And I'm seeing now more than I've ever seen in life, in my 28 years on this planet, of the influencer role on social media becoming the thing. Yeah. Is that TikTok and Instagram and all the other platforms that I don't even know exist, there's this term now called influencer. Yeah. And it's literally people who have a massive following, and it's some of our own people that follow them and are influenced by them. And, it's funny that that's even a role. Yeah. I never would have imagined we'd get to that place in culture, that there's an influencer role, but we're there. And, now we're in the place of, asking questions like, how can we influence this generation to be better? How can we influence them, for Christ? How can we lead them better and be a better example? And so I think influence is important, because I think when you understand who has influenced you and what happened during that, you can step back and say, okay, that really wasn't good influence in my life, and you check it. Yeah. So for you with that, you said your bad list was long. Yeah. Kind of walk us through you kind of assessing, okay, who's influencing my life? Who's speaking into it? Like, what was that process like for you? Because I know a lot of people struggle to identify that. Yeah. They just kind of take everything and let it influence their life completely. How did you separate and understand, okay, this is not good for me. How can I find someone who can influence me for the good? Yeah, definitely it was the Lord's doing. I had to get right with him first in order to have like a clear mind and actually listen to the Holy Spirit. So I got saved when I was little.
but like I said, like didn't really do anything with it. So once I surrendered junior year of college, or probably like 21 years old, that's when I could really like depict of, okay, like who is influencing me? Because that's when I got finally real with my faith, with my life, with everything. And so it was hard because I had a lot of friends in the party scene and like in the world scene, just by standards. And it was hard to know, like, okay, that, like, I don't feel good when I'm there, right? That was like the first thing, is like, conviction is such a scary word, but it really is God like being like, hey, like something is wrong, like check this out. And so I didn't feel good when I was around those people. I felt like, I was like, this is sad. Like, like life should be happy, and these people seem sad, and like they're always talking bad about people. So it's kind of feeling how I felt around those people. Again, not to be mean, but just like, okay, they're influencing me. Like when I'm around them and I leave, like I can tell I'm taking a little bit of them with me. And I was like, I don't like that part of me. And so it was kind of almost debriefing with myself of like, okay, after leaving certain people, how do I feel? Like, what do I bring away from them? Like, do I act like them? Like, am I copying certain ways? And if I saw that that wasn't, you know, in the way of Christ and loving and kind and all the fruits of the Spirit, I was like, that's probably a bad influence. Yeah. And so I didn't just cut them off completely and like say, okay, bye forever. It was definitely like a slow, like gradual, like, hey, like I'm not going to do that anymore. And it was scary at first. I like lost some friends, but I realized, I was like, if I'm going to be real and if I'm going to get my life back on track and live how I should live, like I have to start cutting a few branches from me to, like, I don't know, kind of imagining the vine and the branch and all that stuff. I'm like, if I'm attached to them, like it's going to start coming into my space. Yeah. So slowly starting to cut away, but really determining, you know, what was a bad influence was what was I bringing away from that? Like when I wasn't with those people, was I still acting that way? Because I could tell that that was an influence in my life, because I was taking that and kind of bringing it with me. I don't know if that helps like clarify, like how did I find the bad and the good influences, but it was definitely like seeing how I was acting. Yeah. And then if I acted a certain way, I was like, where did I get that from? Yeah. It's almost like when you pick up on a certain, like, I don't know, a certain word, like groovy. My dad said groovy all the time. And it's like, okay, I spent so much time with him, I started saying groovy. Yeah. So it was like stuff like that. Like when I did something bad, it's like, okay, where did I first get that from? And it revealed a lot. Like it does when you start to think like, where did I first do this or hear this, or why am I doing this? And it always comes back to one source. Yeah.
And I think too, with that, whenever you're in the moment, it's so easy to be influenced by anything. Yeah. Is that I found too in my life, you know, I struggled too with that in high school, trying to be the cool kid, which I never was. I was always this short, weird looking dude. And, you know, I tried to play baseball. I wasn't that good, but, you know, I thought I was. And but I hung out with that crew, and eventually I found myself doing the very same thing. Yeah. It was just I wanted to fit in so bad. And I think even more now in this generation, and I love this generation. I love ministering to them. I love loving on them, getting to speak life into them whenever I can. You know, the one thing that I always tell our students is, again, you have influence. Yeah. Use it for the right reasons. Yeah. Because I've seen so many people that have influence, have an influential life, waste it on leading people the wrong way, and in turn that wastes their life. And so I think this generation is looking for authenticity. They're looking for true love. They're looking for true leadership. And so for us, it's our job to do that. So let me ask this: in your life, you're married, you're young, you're 25, you know, you've still kind of got the spring chicken, you know, around you. You've got
spring chicken.
Yeah, like
I've never heard that.
Like your younger bubbly personality. Okay. We're in Clinton chickens, you know, that's how it goes.
Cool.
With that though, how easy are you influenced now as an adult?
Ooh, that's good. Like you said, I mean, it's like you said, you had it in high school, and definitely I did as well in college, came and went. And I think even now, like, just being a human, I still am. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm not influenced at all. Like, that would be lying straight up to your face. Like, especially being a girl, being on social media, loving fashion, loving trends. Like, it's hard. And I think a lot of times I always tell like my girls that I like mentor and talk to and disciple, like it's a connection, and so it's a war between your heart and your mind. Because it's like in your heart you're like, okay, I want to stand out, I want to be different, I want to not fall into temptation, I want to be influenced by good things, right? But your mind is like, no, like we don't want to stand out, because then we're labeled. Like, no, we don't want to stand out, we don't want to be different, because then we won't fit in. And it's like, you know what is truth and you know how you should be influenced, but then your mind is like fighting. It's like, no, we don't want that, because the moment we do that, like we're completely set apart. Like, we're completely put on this other side of this goody, like this Christian girl. Like, you're not going to get invited. Your friends are going to hate you. Like, so it's even now, like, it's a heart and mind battle still to this day of like, man, like, if I do, get influenced by this certain thing, like, maybe I will get more followers. Like, maybe more people will come to Worthy Nights. Like, maybe more people, but it's like, no, like, I have to set my foot down and be like, I'm not going to be influenced by that. Like, that may draw a bigger crowd, but it won't be a crowd of authenticity. Like, it won't be a genuine crowd. Like, it won't make me good. Like, it'll start to break me down. And so it's definitely hard, especially in this world when influence is so big. And the Lord has blessed me, thankfully, with a following, I guess you would say. But it is hard to not be influenced by the wrong things, because I know if I fall into that, like, yeah, I would make my influence more. Like, I'd be cooler. Like, people probably follow me more. But it's like, then I would just be fake, and I wouldn't be walking the walk, right? Like, I would just be fake. And so it's hard, but it's just a constant like surrender of like, okay, I know what I should do, and I'm going to do that regardless of what comes after it. So definitely still a battle at 25, full-time in ministry. Like, I'm not going to lie, like, it doesn't get easier. Like, I know my parents still struggle with it. Like, probably an older generation still struggles with influence, but it's knowing your heart is what you should go for, not the mind. Even though the heart's deceitful, definitely praying through that is tough, but knowing that bad influence gets you maybe more influence when it comes to the worldly eyes, but it fails with nothing. It's always going to end up fake.
Yeah. It's funny because, as we're sitting here talking about this, I'm sitting here just wrestling with so many thoughts, and it's like, God just gives you a little nugget.
Yeah.
And, it's something I've learned in my own life that I see now. I mean, I'm 28. I'm a little older than you. I'm not much older. I've seen in my life patterns of seasons of my life where there was so much influence for the negative, and then getting into ministry, there's so much influence for the positive. And so, it's funny that, I found myself even being, as a pastor, influenced by other pastors, wanting to be like them and have their following and talking like them. And it's just so easy to fall into that. And I discovered through that your greatest influence comes from the source of your identity.
I love that.
Wherever, whatever your identity is found in will be your greatest influence. And something, we talk about, like I've said with the circle thing here, is that I want our students, our church, me as a Christian to understand I have influence everywhere I go.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if people know me or not. I've discovered that more people know me than I know them because I'm on, all these speaking things and whatever I'm doing. And I understand now more than ever in my life that every decision I make, both public and private, reflect the character of me on the platform. And my identity, whatever it's in, is going to be what's influencing me.
Yeah.
And I think this generation has an identity crisis. We've talked about this on this podcast of, sports and social media. And man, I think we are at a crisis point right now.
Yeah.
That if people don't step up and begin to influence for the right way, our generation's going to just fall through the crack again, and we can't let that happen. Yeah. And so I think for you, you've kind of stepped up to the plate a lot, and just knowing you in the last little bit with FCA, taking on a new role of leading this new ministry called Worthy Nights. I know it was a dream for you. Kind of walk us through, a little bit. Like I'll give you, it's a passion of yours. I see it. Like you light up when you talk about it. You get excited. You're bubbly about it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
What for you put that burden in your heart to begin something called Worthy Nights? We'll start there.
Lots of sad teenage hours in my life. Seriously, like as sad as that is. I mean, like I said, like I didn't have anyone telling me I was worthy. Like, of course, your mom and your dad and your sister do, but it's like you have to. Like, you're my parents. That's in my teenage mind. I'm thinking that, and so. Like it developed, like I said, into me finding worth in other things and being influenced by the wrong things. And so coming out of it on the other side, seeing girls do that now, I'm like, I know exactly, like I know what you're going through. Like I've walked your shoes, maybe not, of course, their own lives, but I was like, I know their struggles as much as I can. I know their hurt hearts, and I know they're seeking for it. And that's why I'm happy the Lord led my life down and wrote it a certain way. I wouldn't have written it that way. I wouldn't have put myself through a lot of years of...
I don't think any of us would.
Not great things. But definitely, I think he did that so I can look at them and be like, I'm not a cookie cutter Christian. Like, I know, like, I've done things. I've been through things. And so... but right before the pandemic hit, I was like, I want to get girls together and tell them not just like their worth and make it about them, right? Because we're not worthy unless we have Christ, and like Christ makes us worthy. But the fact of like, no matter what is happening in your life, no matter what your relationship status is, your sports status, your social, like nothing, like you still have worth if you are a child of God, because that in the end, that's all you're going to have. Like, you're not going to have a boyfriend. You're not going to have clothes. You're not going to have social media. Like, when you die, like the only worth you will have is in Christ Jesus. Yeah. And so I was like, I want to start something. I didn't know what that was. I thought it was just going to be chilling in Panera. No joke. Like, I thought it was like, I was going to rent out the back room and be like, hey, like from 5 to 7, if you're a high school girl, like come hang with me. Yeah. That sounds weird. Like, just like a random invite.
Free food though, they'll come.
Right. And then the pandemic hit and I was like, well, crap, like now we can't go anywhere. And then just for a year, like it was just stirring in my heart of like, man, like once this pandemic is over, like I'm going to do something. Yeah. And I won't lie, Worthy came from a Bible study in Tennessee Wesleyan. It was just a group of girls. And I was like, and I knew the girl who started it. She was one of the good influences when I found Christ. But I was like, hey, or when I found him for real, I was like, hey, can I steal the name Worthy? And she was like, I don't care. She's like, it's just a name. And so I just got with my staff and I said, I want to bring girls together from all over, all different races, all different economic status, like just any girl that will come. And I want to tell them their worth in Christ, because like I wish someone did that to me. Yeah. And it just turned into, the Lord led it to go the way it's gone. And each month there's just been a testimony of just like, hey, like life is hard. Like whether it's eating disorder or comparison or cancer, like we've just had ultimate stories. They're like, life is hard, but in the end, like you have worth in Christ. Like no matter if your health is good, your body is good, like everything has been hit, and it all comes back to like we are worthy no matter what, because we are children of God. So I get excited because I see these girls just sobbing, and that's not a good, like that doesn't make me feel good, right? If they're crying and they're hurt, but it's like finally someone's talking about it. Because I think church is beautiful, and we support the church and like push all the girls like go to church. Holy cow! Like don't let Worthy Nights or Young Life or FCA or what a fill in the blanks be your church. Like go weekly and go to youth group. But we're just happy that it's just girls and we're talking about like harder stuff like body image and eating disorders and stuff like that. But I just get so excited because I'm like, man, I wish I had that. Like I get emotional thinking of how different the trajectory of my life would have been if I had something or someone telling me that.
Yeah, I think too, with that, I mean, that right there, I believe encapsulates the whole idea of good influence.
Yeah.
Is that because of the lack thereof in your life, you now are replacing what you learned in those seasons of bad to then in turn for good. It's like Romans 8:28, all things work for the good of those who are called according to God's good purpose. And obviously God has a major calling on your life because he's blessing this. And, the Arbor's journal on your Instagram, I mean, it's just insane seeing what you're doing. And it even though, it's geared towards girls a lot, I mean, it influences my life because I read it and I'm like, dude, that's good stuff. And I just think it's awesome. And so with Worthy Nights, let's keep talking about it for a few. I mean, you're all jazzed about it. I love it. What have you seen coming out of that? Not in the numbers and the whole, yes, salvations are important, but I'm talking about how are you seeing young girls who are being influenced the right way begin to be a good influence? Yeah.
So actually, kind of cool that this lined up after we just wrapped up the year, which is sad, but it's like we need a 2-month break.
Oh yeah,
but also
summer,
the girls
man.
about to be on vacation and it's crazy. But we had something called open mic, and as terrifying as it is to give a teenager a microphone in front of a lot of girls, I was like, I'm gonna do it because I want them to have a voice and be able to talk from stage about whatever, like whether that was what they've learned throughout the year or just what they felt or whatever they wanted. And I was there to make sure, like, just to pull it back just in case, but almost all of them just got up there and they didn't talk about themselves. Like almost 3/4 of them talked to the girls. And they're like, we know that you've heard it every month, but like you are loved, like you all are beautiful. And like just so many affirming, truthful statements that I saw the girls get up there, hold a microphone, and then speak to their peers. And then it was weird because I told them afterwards, I was like, it's so easy to do that here. Like when we're in a group of believers, it's easy to encourage each other. Like it's easy to say like you are worthy. Like no matter what you've done, like there is grace and there's forgiveness, because they were like hitting deep stuff. I was like, holy cow, like we got some future mentors in here. I was thrilled, but I told them, I was like, like it's easy to do that here. I was like, but take it. And I genuinely believe, like, I love this generation. I think that what they're learning in church, at Worthy Nights, at FCA, like, they are taking it and they're spreading it. Hopefully, that's my prayer. But I think that they're getting more bold in saying that, like, you are worthy. Because I think this generation, like, if you don't have this many followers, it's like, oh, I can't be an influencer. Because influencer, like, you have to have a certain amount of followers, you have to have a blue check mark, you have to be good at something. And so definitely, I think, like, people don't think they can be an influencer if they don't hit all the criteria. It's like, no, like, what God has made you good at, like, that's how you're going to influence people. Like, he didn't make me good at sports, but like ballet and like artistic and journaling, like, that's how I was like, okay, cool, I'm good at that, so I'm going to use that to influence people. And I think these girls realize, like, okay, I may not be good at anything but public speaking, or I may not be good at anything but art, and I may not be good at anything but rollerblading. And I think they're realizing, like, I'm going to use that, whatever I'm good at, and that be my influence. And I think I'm seeing them become more bold in telling people, like, truth, because I think girls are scared to do that, because it's just, I mean, they made a movie called Mean Girls. Like, it's typical, like, a girl is mean, and if they're mean to you, like, you're going to be mean to them back. But I think at Worthy Nights, I'm seeing that break down. It's like, okay, if I go to Austin East, I can hang out with a web girl at Worthy Nights. Like, it wouldn't ever happen. Maybe, usually not in Knoxville. Right. But that's if you don't know, inner city in a private, predominantly white, rich school, it's like they're hanging out and, like, they're talking, and there's community, and there's just a breakdown, and there's authenticity, and it's just transparency of, like, we're just going to be sisters. Like, that's what we're meant to be, sisters in Christ. So I think I'm seeing more boldness come out in them. And I don't know if it would have been there. Hopefully it would have been if Worthy Nights wasn't there. But it's just, it's a praise and a blessing to see that they're getting more bold in their faith, whether it's they're baby Christians or full-on Christians, like, they're getting bold. So
yeah, and I believe boldness comes from strong influence. Because if you have someone who's influencing that's bold, you'll want to be that way. And, you know, and I know you personally, so it's easy for me to say and see, but, you know, just stepping back from that role and looking at the 30,000-foot view of what God's doing through that ministry is insane. I mean, to have a couple hundred high school girls each month gathering, worshiping, and being influenced whenever the world is pushing against them, dude, kudos to you, man. That's so awesome. And I mean it, like, it's an honor to know you. I mean, I really mean that. You know, but the biggest thing for me too is, you know, in our roles as ministers of the gospel, I've discovered the identity of, you know, what your identity is, your greatest source of influence. But also on the flip side of this is that so many people waste their influence. And so many people wait for the right opportunity, and they're wasting more time than they realize. And I think, you know, now more than ever is a call for those who are following the Lord, who are being influenced by the right ways to begin to pour down, because that's something I tell our staff all the time is we've got to continue to reach down. We have to reach down, because most adults, they're set in their way. I mean, when you get to mid 30s, late 40s, or early 40s, even, like, your life's, you're picked. And now more than ever, I'm seeing a shift in that with this generation, that they're so fluid. That this, especially when a sixth grader, I mean, they don't know who they are. And so, you know, it's capturing that moment of influence. And I think you're doing an incredible job of that. And, you know, I just wanted to talk about Worthy Nights. I love it. I love what you're doing. If you are a high school girl listening to this, get to Worthy Nights. Whatever you can do, even if you don't live in Knoxville, drive. It's worth it, I promise.
We have girls that drive 45 minutes.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Well, Arbor, thank you for the conversation. But before we end today, I do have one more question.
Okay.
And this is just kind of a bounce off the wall. If you could say anything to someone listening right now about allowing the right influence to enter into their life, what would you say, and how would you tell them to do it?
It has to be the last question.
Yep.
Because now I know we're on a time crunch. I'm like, oh, dang, now I don't have a lot of time to think. I think it kind of goes 2 for 1, because I think right now, if you're in a state where you're like, I want to be a good influence, and like you're almost encouraged by this, I think one of my favorite quotes, and I might butcher it, but it's saying influencing or example isn't the main thing in influencing, it's the only thing. So it's like example isn't the main thing in influencing someone, it's the only thing. So it's like live by example, like everywhere you are, be the same. Like, do not change it, because it's easy when you're in the spotlight, like we're on a podcast or somewhere, to be like, oh, I'm going to be such a good influencer. But the moment you go somewhere behind closed doors, it's like you cannot just change. So it's, if someone's listening and they're encouraged and they're like ready to like start influencing someone exactly where they are. It's like, do that, but be that literally every waking breath, like example, like live by example. But then on the opposite end is who are you looking at? Like, who's pouring into you? So definitely I think like a water fountain analogy, like if you have different layers of a water fountain, right? 4 layers, whatever's at the bottom is going to be what's at the top. So it'll pour down into each layer. So I think what you're being influenced by, who you're following, that's the top layer, and then who you're influencing and who is following you is just going to be poured down.
Yeah.
So it's really from the top up of who's influencing you and who are you looking at, who are you following, because what you take in is what you're going to be pouring out. So if it's good influences, then you will result and promote a good influence. But if it's poor influences or worldly things, then you're going to promote and be a worldly person. So definitely, just live by example, because example is really the main thing, the only thing. And then it's really top up and from the bottom, like what's pouring into you is ultimately what's going to come out of you.
Yeah. And, I love that analogy of the waterfall. I was on a pastor's retreat in February with Robbie Gallaty from Long Hollow, and I love Robbie and their whole team. They're killing it in Nashville. But he was talking about his life and when he first got into ministry, and he said, I wanted to be an influencer. I wanted to be, up there with the big dogs. And he said, I started climbing this ladder of success in my mind. And he said, God spoke to me, and I discovered through what he said was that the higher that you climb the ladder, there's no graceful way to fall.
Sheesh.
And he said, the higher I went, I realized I have no harness to hold me here other than my reputation.
Wow.
And it can be gone in a moment.
Yeah.
And he said, so then I realized I've got to come back down the ladder, because I don't want to chase after the platform. I want to chase the one who gave me the platform. And I'm just like, dude, you were speaking to me.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to do that. And I think with this generation, we have to fight for that. We have to fight to let them understand that they all have influence where they are in their life right now. And man, I have seen students that have taken the charge and went, and I've seen students that have taken the charge at church and went the other way when they went home. And it's one or the other. And so I think we're at a pivotal point, and I believe that influence really matters. One thing, the kind of a last thought here is really figuring out who you are and your identity, I believe helps, but more so it's that everything that you do comes from that. And I can say in my life, my identity has been so fluid until I found the Lord. And I say this all the time. I would never imagine the platforms that I have now to do the things I do looking back on my life. But God is so good, because in that I found the right influence, just like you. And that's so cool. So Arbor, thank you so much for doing what you do, for loving the Lord, for being vulnerable, for being honest, and for being here today.
Thank you so much.
If you are a high school girl, get to Worthy Nights. When does it start back up?
Starts in August. First Sunday.
First Sunday in August. We will definitely share that and put that in our description on this episode.
Perfect.
So we want everybody to go. But thank you all for joining us this week for Talk to Walk with Arbor. We hope this conversation has been helpful to help you maybe walk in your life better. Again, check out the podcast, rate it, review it, help us get in the algorithm so that people can hear the content we're producing. Again, it's available everywhere, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Check it out. But we love you guys. Have a great week, and we'll see you guys next week for the next episode.